What is going on, guys? Tim with Swing Yard here. Today we're going to be talking about golf simulators, more specifically the components that make up a golf simulator. Now you've heard the term impact screen, launch monitor, hitting mat. What do all these things mean? We'll walk through those, but one of the first things I need you to understand is what is your budget. As soon as you know your budget, you know where you can spend up and where you can save and cut costs or upgrade later so that you can build a perfect do-it-yourself at-home simulator that you've always been dreaming about. Okay, the other thing to understand is your space. Okay, I'm in a garage here. I've had to work around the garage rails, for example. Okay, you need to understand your space because not everybody has a perfectly square or rectangular room. If you do, you can buy an out-of-the-box solution from Carl's place, and that'll probably just work fine for you. But if you're going to do it yourself like I have, you need to understand the components, where you can spend up, where you can save, and what each of them do to build the most realistic gameplay that you're looking for. So, if you want to build your at-home simulator, tune in, guys, as we walk through the components together. Okay, guys, the first piece we're going to talk about is the impact screen. This is the impact screen. It's what takes all the impact from your golf balls. Makes sense, right? Now, a couple things to make note of here. First, I have a gray impact screen. I'm actually testing this out because it has more contrast than a typical standard white one does. It's also, you can see it's brand new, hence all the lines on it. I haven't ironed those out yet. I will. Now, the other thing, I'm using regular plumber's piping to make my frame. I have a 9x12 frame. This is very important that you understand what the dimensions are of your space and that your impact screen fits those dimensions. Okay? Make sure you're doing that. I'm currently using zip ties to keep my screen pretty tight, but it's still plenty loose. You don't want it too tight or the ball is going to bounce back hard at you. Okay? The other thing to mention, this should be at least a foot off your wall. Okay? Check out the picture here. You can see that mine is 12 inches off the wall. These tend to stretch out a little bit, and they need a little bit of give room so that the ball can properly impact and bounce back. You know, if you're letting it get too tight, especially as the screen gets older and more stretched out, you're going to be hitting your drywall behind there or whatever's behind your screen. So the impact screen is important. This is what's going to display your image. It's important that you understand the quality of that and some of the color dimensions. We'll get to the projector in a minute. But again, I'm testing a gray one here. There's a lot of white options available. There's different quality of these. How much are you going to play in your simulator? Are you going to play a lot? Is this kind of like a commercial grade build you're building? Or is it just a quick do-it-yourself? I'll maybe play once or twice a week or a month or something like that. Okay? So kind of understand the quality of the impact screen and the durability, and that's going to kind of determine the price range of which you want for your impact screen. There's piece number one. All right, guys, item number two is the enclosure. The enclosure is what's enclosing the impact screen, okay? That's these durable little things over here. These are actually curtains that I use for mine. You can use different padded versions. There's so many options for these enclosures. I don't have my one on top. My hitting area is actually pretty close, so I haven't needed that one yet, but I do have it. I just need to put it up. But the enclosure saves you from the bad shots, guys. You do need an enclosure unless you're really close to the screen, which I doubt. But, especially when you have guests over, you want an enclosure to protect you from any of those hosel rockets, any of the sky drives that might happen, protect your house, your drywall, whatever it might be. Now, enclosures also help image quality, right? I'm in a garage with a lot of natural lighting, so this actually blocks out quite a bit of lighting for me here, which is great because you want your image to be cast bright onto your screen. So enclosures are important. They also help, sort of the confidence of your play. You're able to hit bad shots. You're not worried about damaging your house. Enclosures can be important for that. So I'll link a couple things in the description. Check out the different enclosure options that might work for you. All right, guys, item number three, turf. This is not a necessary piece if you're trying to save a little bit of money. Now, if you are looking to buy turf, like this that I'm sitting on here, now this is different than your stance mat and your hitting mat. Okay, this is turf to kind of make it look aesthetically pleasing to those individuals coming to your golf simulator. People often put holes in the turf, so you can putt and work on your putting. One of the two things I'll make note of here. One, turf and like your hitting mat, the stimp on it can be important. A lot of turf can come a little bit thicker and actually feel very slow. Okay, so try and do your research and make sure you find a turf that is a stimp that you want. The other thing that I'd recommend if you decide to go with turf, make sure it's the same height as your hitting mat and stance mat. Okay, so I've actually used a couple Amazon, just like little workout slabs to make it 2 or 3 inches off the ground so that it's the same height as my hitting mat and so that my putt rolls smooth. Okay, that's basically all I really need to say about that. There's different options of turf. Some are cheaper. You know, you don't necessarily need a piece this big if you don't want. You can have a smaller piece. You don't even need to have it if you don't want it, if you're trying to cut costs. This would actually be an area where I'd recommend saving money if you are trying to build on a budget. But if you have any questions, obviously let us know in the comments. But that's just something I want to touch on is the turf or kind of the putting area. All right, guys, item number 4 is your hitting mat, okay? This is an essential piece to your golf simulator. Now, to be clear, you can save on this area if you're just getting started building your simulator, but I would recommend buying a decent hitting mat. Okay, some hitting mats come as an entire unit along with the stance mat. What I'm showing here is just a hitting mat by itself. It's the same one that fits in this area right here. Okay, these are important because not only is it the look and feel and aesthetics of the golf simulator, but it's also important to mimic the real gameplay of golf. Okay, a good hitting mat will mimic the spin rates, the launch angles that you see out on the course. A bad hitting mat, a cheap one off Amazon, it is okay to get started with that, and I'm not downgrading that at all, but those can also hurt your wrists. They can impact spin rates and launch angles, and it might just not give you the same read as you'd get, you know, in a good hitting mat or out on the real course. So make sure you do your research on these because I think these are an essential piece to the golf simulator and kind of mimicking that real gameplay. Number 5, stance mat. Okay, the stance mat is simply put, that's where you stand. Simple as that. A couple key things to note here. You want your stance mat to be the same height as your hitting mat. Okay, that's super important. You'd hate to hit all these swings with the ball an inch above your feet or an inch below your feet. Similarly, I purposely went for a color that's the same as my turf and a color that's close to my hitting mat. It just aesthetically looks pleasing and makes your golf simulator look nice. The final thing to note for your stance mat, make sure it's somewhat of quality. You know, sometimes these come as one unit. Often those won't be as forgiving on your wrist like I talked about in the hitting mat section. But if it's not, make sure it's the same height, but also make sure it's quality, right? You don't want to be turning your feet a lot of these and for them to shred up on you, okay? Make sure you just do a little bit of research. You can cut costs on this part, absolutely. But you know, make sure you do whatever fits your simulator the best and whatever makes you feel comfortable with hitting the golf ball. All right, guys, on to component number 6, which is the launch monitor itself. Now, launch monitors are the nuts and bolts of your golf simulator experience. They are what reads the ball data, the club data, the spin rates, the launch angles, the club path, and much more. Now, the good news is technology is sort of catching up. And what I mean by that is some of the more budget-friendly options are actually really good options, and they can still be pretty accurate. You can also spend tens of thousands of dollars in getting an extremely precise unit that's not going to give you a lot of misreads or miscalculations in your shots. So there's a couple things to evaluate. Now, I'm not going to dive too much into launch monitors. We will link some launch monitor reviews in the description below, so you can watch those for more detailed analysis of launch monitors. But similarly, in terms of components of launch monitors, I want you to think about where this unit is going to sit. Okay, so I have a Unicore IXO that sits between 9 and 10 feet off the ground and a little bit in front of the hitting area. Okay, if your space won't allow for that, then this isn't the launch monitor for you. TrackMan's going to sit behind. You have Garmin, SkyTrack, Rapsodo that have units that will probably sit next to the ball. The other thing I want to mention there is, do you have left-handed and right-handed players that are going to be playing in your simulator? I'm a left-handed player, so I had to build a space that I wanted to play my own ball here, but I know that 99.9% of my guests are going to be right-handed players over here. Okay, so you got to think about these things in terms of the space you have and kind of the unit that might work in your space. So think about that. Now, as I mentioned, I have a Unicore IXO, so I'm actually going to hit a couple shots, and then I'm going to show you guys some of the shot data and club data that you can get from a launch monitor. We'll talk about it. All right, guys, continuing on with component number 6, the launch monitor, I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of some of the data and statistics that you can expect to see from a launch monitor. Now, again, I'm using the Unicore IXO launch monitor, which actually uses View software. This is Unicore's specific software. So different manufacturers will have a different UI than you see on the screen at the moment, but most should contain similar data and similar stuff to look at. So what you can expect to see from these manufacturers, from this software, from launch monitors is, here's a view of my shot. I can tell that I hooked that 7-iron a little bit too much. No problem. I'm learning from that. I can see the impact. If I click on the club section here, I can actually see a video of my strike. Great, I hit it in the middle, but my club path is open. I'm getting some side spin. I'm learning from this shot. And I can also look at more of like a session view, right? So I have carry distances. I have speed, ball speed, club speed, the different spin and launch angles, super important factors to fine-tuning your game. Obviously I just hit 5 balls here with a 7-iron. You can use drivers, wedges, even putting experience with Unicore and GS Pro, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is a great experience. It ultimately makes the simulator experience feel more realistic, and research into your launch monitor is super important. If you guys have questions, please hit us in the comments. We'd love to talk more about them. We're testing a bunch of them right now with Second Swing, actually. So if you guys have any questions, let us know. But this is a super important piece. Don't skimp out on your launch monitor. More so just the research. You can find those budget options, but do your research, guys. The launch monitor is important. All right, guys, on to component number 7, which is the computer itself. Now, the computer is important because it basically ties everything together. It's going to take your launch monitor data and integrate it with the golf simulation software and seamlessly create your golf simulator experience, along with projecting the image. So it's important that your computer fits your needs, but also this is a good place to either spend up, or there's areas where you could save here to fit your budget. So first of all, if you're looking to do something like I have here, you're going to want a pretty solid, strong, performant computer. So you're going to want at least like an Intel i5 or the Ryzen 5 or the 7 version of those processing speed. I think you can get away with 8 gigabytes of RAM. I'd recommend 16 or even better 32 if you can get up there with your budget. But along with that, I'd also go with a solid state hard drive. These courses are downloaded locally and run off the hard drive, so it's important that you get a performant hard drive so that the transitions and golf courses run smoothly off that hard drive. The last thing to note here is your graphics card. Make sure you get a good graphics card. Now, actually I'm going to back up. You don't technically need to project an image like this if you are on a budget. You could actually just run it off a computer screen that I'm looking at here, or even an iPad, and just hit into a net if that's what you are going with in sort of your budget solution. So there are other ways to cut costs there, but if you're looking to kind of display something like I have here, you're going to want a high-powered graphics card, especially if you're looking into the 4K region as opposed to like 1440 or something like that. So do your research on your graphics card. I'd highly recommend like a gaming graphics card that sort of fits those needs. And then one additional piece to think about when you're using your computer is make sure you have good internet. Like I'm out in the garage right now, so I actually had to get a separate pod of my mesh network to come out here so that my internet speeds were fast enough to run the programs. The final note, make sure your computer can breathe and it's nice and cool. These computers work pretty hard, so you want to make sure you're not just shoving it in a corner, but that it can have proper venting and flowing so that it can run optimally. If you have more questions on computers or just kind of the statistics that you need or the power that you need, let us know in the comments. We're happy to help. But the computer is an essential piece in order for everything to run smoothly and make your simulator experience just smooth. Okay, on to component number 8, which is the projector. The projector is obviously going to be one of the most important pieces for the visual experience of your golf simulator, alongside your graphics card. But the projector can come in many different shapes and sizes. There can be short throw or long throw projectors. Basically short throw meaning it's going to be closer to the screen, a shorter throw, longer throw coming from farther back. So make sure you analyze your space and understand where you could put a projector. Further to that, you want to look into things like how bright does it need to be. My garage is actually pretty bright because I have light coming in, so I need more light from my projector to make the screen brighter. How many lumens do you need? Okay, we'd recommend maybe 4,000 lumens is a great image. Similar to that, you're going to want to look at the resolution of the projector. The higher the resolution, the more crisp and clear your screen is gonna look, right? Certainly that comes at a cost as well, but if you're looking at 1080p versus 4K, it's a big difference. And then finally, the refresh rate. The refresh rate is how fast it can change images and how fast it can kind of load things in and out. These are all very important, and then just understanding the durability of your projector itself. But the projector is a good piece to help display and shape sort of the experience. So make sure you do your research. We're always happy to answer questions. I didn't go into too much detail here, but I mentioned a couple things that I want you to think about when looking at projectors for your golf simulator. All right, guys, on to component number 9, which is the golf simulation software. Now you can see behind me that I am currently using GS Pro, which is probably one of the most popular options out there. There's also E6 Connect, E6 Apex, TGC 19, there's TrackMan Virtual Golf, there's different solutions out there, but some launch monitors work better with some softwares than others, so make sure you pair the two and they can communicate together. Now, the simulation software is basically what loads the course data and gives you that visual experience. Now, this is running off my computer, but this is GS Pro, and this is where you can, pick different courses. There's tournament play. There's the simulator golf tour, which is actually really fun to play on. So you can actually play on tournaments against other people. And there's a website for this. Can I zoom in a little bit? So yeah, this is the simulator golf tour. This is not part of the simulation software. It's just an added bonus, if you will. I wanted to mention it. So GS Pro is your software where it's actually going to load all the course data. This is the tournaments that I mentioned. And then so you can download all these to play. This one's at Black Desert Resort. And there's different tours that you can play in. There's Pro, there's Web, there's SUT. These are different levels and tiers of quality of play. And, but similarly, you can play local matches or just practice. They have online matches, so you can either play, scrambles. You could play 1-versus-1 type of things. Different challenges that are all just local challenges. And then some other challenges where you can compete against other people. So the simulation software is kind of what provides the actual gameplay experience. Your launch monitor is going to be sending data to your simulation software, which is what says the ball is going this far on this hole, that type of thing. So this is really great. GS Pro is awesome. I'd recommend it. It is a subscription software. I think it's $250 for the entire year. If you think about the cost of golf, I can easily spend that in one round of golf. Not that I like doing that, but you get my point. So $250 for how much I play in my garage seems like a pretty good deal to me. But you can have this almost any course that they've built already, and the list is only getting bigger. And these are just ones that I have downloaded locally right now. So you can kind of search for whatever, sort by par 3, beginner, fantasy, training, all these different things. The golf simulation software is really coming to be awesome the more it's been built out. And there's some really fun games to play if you have kids, stuff like that. So if you have more questions on the golf simulation software, let us know. This is one example. There's obviously many more, but this runs off your computer and is what the projector displays on the screen for your best simulation experience. All right, guys, on to component number 10, which is the last component I'll talk about in this video. But these are just little miscellaneous items like your golf simulator tees. A lot of hitting mats can allow real tees, which is great, but it's actually pretty annoying because they fly all over the place. Even these are all right. They're super cheap on Amazon. I would recommend the K2 golf tees. They're on a string, so it actually just comes right back to you. Pretty easy to set up and take down. Another thing I'd mention is overhead lights. It's a simple little unit off Amazon, but it lights up my space here, especially when it gets dark at night. Super helpful. Little things like that can go a long ways. Obviously, you're going to want some balls that work. One thing I want to mention, don't let your balls get too chewed up when you're playing in the simulator. If your balls get really chewed up, they're going to start ripping up the threads in the screen. You need to be diligent about having decent golf balls in your simulator. You're going to have to recycle them in and out once they get used a lot. Now, a lot of golf balls will last a while, so it's not too big of a concern. Just stay on top of it. And then you're also going to go through gloves and stuff pretty quickly. But just a couple things I wanted to mention in terms of miscellaneous items. If you can think of anything else, let me know, and I'll put it in the description below. Otherwise, we'll touch more on miscellaneous stuff later. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to today's video, learning about golf simulators and all the components that are involved. We talked about impact screens, enclosures, turf, hitting mat, stance mat, the launch monitor, computer, the projector, the golf simulation software, and some other miscellaneous items. We touched on it all. If you guys have questions, please ask. Go to swingyard.com. We have tons of stuff on there that's going to outline more of this information for you. We have a great article on how to build a golf simulator. Tune in to swingyard.com for more videos, more golf instructionals, some fun content. We've got it all for you. Hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you have questions, please let us know. And until next time, Swing Yarders, see ya.